Imagine you're sitting there, right, in your cap and gown. You're just waiting for the commencement speaker to step up to the podium and, give you the usual speech.
Right, the whole follow your passion or invest in your 401k early kind of thing.
Exactly. But instead, this man steps up to the microphone, looks out at your entire graduating class, and just says, "Congratulations on your degree. However, you are all mentally incomplete. The universe has 36 dimensions, and to survive what's coming, we must immediately abolish the human family."
I mean, it's just the ultimate ideological whiplash. You're sitting there expecting mundane career advice for climbing the corporate ladder, and instead you're getting handed this massive, highly specific cosmic blueprint.
Yeah, a blueprint that basically demands the total restructuring of human existence.
Oh.
So welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to explore this truly fascinating and highly unusual document from March 2010.
It really is a wild ride.
It is. It's an open letter directed specifically at university students, and it's written by this man named Xuefeng. He founded a movement called Lifechanyuan. And what starts as this, critique of the modern education system quickly escalates into a complete flipping of human psychology.
Mm-hmm. And eventually it lays out this radical utopian blueprint for a society where nations, money, and traditional families simply do not exist.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Where exactly is this author coming from, and why is he targeting college grads, of all people?
Well, the persona Xuefeng establishes right out of the gate is actually crucial for understanding his angle. He doesn't present himself as like a lifelong monk who's just been detached from society forever.
Right, he's not living in a cave somewhere.
Exactly. He introduces himself as someone who has played the earthly game and won. He explains that he was born into deep poverty, traveled all over, founded his own company, and became this self-made millionaire entrepreneur.
Oh, wow. So he's really leaning into that material success.
He is. He even makes a point to highlight that he has a virtuous wife who travels with him and a capable child who's studying in the U.S. So he's deliberately building credibility with a demographic of students who are, frankly, desperate to achieve that exact level of material and social success.
It's like he's setting a trap in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, he shows them the trophy they're all chasing, but then he just immediately pivots.
Yeah, the bait and switch.
Because he attributes 0% of that success to his own business acumen or his education. Instead, he credits all of his earthly wealth to the protection and blessings of what he calls the greatest creator.
Right.
And from that position of having, quote-unquote, made it, he delivers this just devastating critique to these students. He basically tells them that despite their, 16-plus years in classrooms, they're fundamentally lacking. He declares most of them to be not mentally complete individuals.
Which really forces the reader to pause. I mean, Xuefeng argues that from primary school all the way through university, students are only ever taught scientific and technical skills.
Right, just how to do a job.
Yeah, they learn the mechanics. But to him, those technical skills are only 1/3 of the equation for a complete human being.
Okay, so what's the rest of the equation?
Well, the other 2/3, which he claims are entirely missing from modern education, are knowledge of the greatest creator, which he defines as understanding how to live in complete harmony with nature and knowledge of humanity, meaning the mechanics of living peacefully with society.
So because they only have that technical third, they're just profoundly unbalanced in his eyes.
Exactly.
He paints this picture of a generation that knows how to, build a smartphone, but has absolutely no idea how to build a meaningful life. And to fix this, he introduces this concept of the three wealths.
And this is where he takes a really direct shot at established modern psychology.
He does. He lays out these three required wealths: soul wealth, spiritual wealth, and material wealth. But it's the hierarchy that really stands out to me. He insists that soul wealth is the absolute primary need.
Right, the foundational layer for him.
Yeah, and he says without it, you're just a rootless tree or wandering soul. And the next is spiritual wealth, which he says you need to stave off anxiety, fear, and disaster. And material wealth is dead last. It's only needed for basic dignity.
Which is fascinating because he is intentionally inverting the model of human development that most of us just take for granted. I mean, he explicitly calls out Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh, right, the classic pyramid.
Exactly. The traditional understanding is that you absolutely must secure your physiological needs first: food, water, shelter, before you can even think about moving up the pyramid to safety, love, esteem, and finally, spiritual or self-actualization.
Yeah, you can't meditate if you're starving.
Right. But Xuefeng argues that Maslow had it entirely backwards. He actually quotes the proverb, From the high vantage point, the whole view is visible and insists we have to reverse the hierarchy entirely.
See, I really struggle with this premise. It feels like he's telling a drowning man to, focus on his posture. Maslow's framework makes intuitive sense. Get the drowning man some air first, secure the food and the shelter.
I get that, yeah.
But Xuefeng is basically arguing that if your spiritual posture aligns perfectly with the cosmos, the water threatening to drown you will just, poof, cease to exist.
Yeah.
Like, how can anyone realistically focus on cosmic soul actualization if they are literally struggling to pay their rent or find their next meal?
It's a fair question, and he addresses that resistance by challenging our core definition of causality. In Xuefeng's framework, if you focus on the material first, you remain perpetually trapped by the anxieties of the material world.
You're just running on the hamster wheel.
Exactly. You're treating the symptoms, not the disease. The mechanism he proposes is that by securing the soul and spiritual wealth first, you fundamentally change your internal state. You eradicate fear and greed entirely.
So you change the lens you're looking through.
Right. And once you're operating from a place of spiritual abundance rather than survival panic, your material needs naturally align because you're just no longer making decisions driven by desperation.
Okay, so it's not about ignoring the rent. It's about fundamentally changing the internal operating system so that paying the rent is no longer a source of existential terror.
Precisely. But to understand how he expects, a normal, stressed-out college student to actually achieve this top-down approach, we can't just look at this as some neat psychological self-help trick.
Yeah, it's way bigger than that.
It is. This requires a much broader mechanism. We have to look at the massive, highly specific cosmology he constructed to guide this process. It bridges earthly psychology to the literal structure of the universe itself.
And the scale of the philosophy he lays out is just staggering. I mean, the letter mentions that the teachings of Lifechanyuan are spread across nearly 2,000 articles.
Yeah, totaling around 4 million words.
4 million words. And he starts dropping terminology that sounds, honestly, more like quantum physics mixed with ancient mysticism. He claims the universe is holographic, that time operates transversely, and that there are exactly 20 parallel worlds, 36 dimensional spaces, and 36 8-diagram arrays.
It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
We really need to pause and decode this. What does he even mean when he says the universe is holographic?
What's fascinating here is how meticulously he attempts to categorize the intangible just to create a navigable map for the reader. When he calls the universe holographic, he's actually using a specific physical analogy.
Okay, lay it on me.
So if you cut a standard photograph in half, you just get half of the image, right?
Right, just a severed picture.
But if you cut a holographic plate in half and shine a laser through it, you still see the entire complete image. It's just slightly lower in resolution. Every tiny piece contains the blueprint of the whole. Yeah, and Xuefeng is applying this to human consciousness. He's arguing that your individual mind contains the blueprint of the entire cosmos. Therefore, if you alter your consciousness, you're not just, changing your mood, you are literally altering the fabric of the universe you inhabit.
That makes the stakes incredibly high. You aren't just a passenger in the universe, you're the engine. And what about this transverse time concept?
Well, normally we perceive time longitudinally as this straightforward moving line from the past through the present into the future. Imagine it like the trunk of a tree growing taller.
Okay, go straight up.
Right. But transverse time, in his cosmology, is like cutting that tree trunk horizontally and looking at all the rings at once. It suggests that all parallel realities and dimensions are occurring simultaneously in a cross-section of the present moment. And those 36 8-diagram arrays he mentions, that grounds his cosmic math directly in Chinese philosophy, specifically the Bagua from the I Ching, which maps the fundamental principles of reality. He is literally quantifying the infinite to make it feel manageable.
Right, so if the universe is this 36-dimensional hologram, then navigating it obviously requires a very specific set of rules, and that leads directly to his hierarchy of humanity. He divides the entire human race into 5 distinct types.
Right, moving from the bottom up.
Exactly. At the base, you have the ignorant, who are driven purely by base instinct. Then the worldly, who are driven by material desires. Above them are mortals, driven by emotions and relationships. Then we reach the sages, who are driven by pure rationality.
And at the very top.
At the very peak, you have the saints or celestials, who are driven by spiritual senses. It's almost like leveling up in a complex video game. You start as this ignorant NPC driven by basic coding, But if you level up your consciousness, you change your reality.
And this is where the how becomes really crucial. Like, how does one move from being a mortal to a sage? It's not just about reading a book or gaining knowledge. In Xuefeng's framework, consciousness literally shapes physical reality. The text explicitly states that the nature of one's consciousness determines the form of life, meaning the soul, and the environment in which it exists.
Okay, so the mechanism for leveling up isn't just behavioral, it's structural.
Hmm.
If I'm a mortal, reacting emotionally to everything, I have a specific holographic energy signature. Become a sage, I have to systematically strip away those emotional attachments and substitute them for pure rationality.
Yes.
And then to become a celestial, I have to shed even that rationality in favor of this profound spiritual intuition.
You're changing your literal frequency.
Yeah.
By shedding these earthly desires and emotional entanglements, he argues you alter your energy signature, allowing you to vibrate into a higher state of existence.
Which sounds intense.
It is. The ultimate destination in this text isn't a comfortable retirement or a lasting legacy on Earth. It's physically and spiritually reaching what he calls the Celestial Islands continent in the Elysium world.
Which sounds very ethereal, right?
Yeah.
Like an alternate dimension or an afterlife that you only access once you shuffle off this mortal coil.
Yeah.
But just as you're getting comfortable with this idea of vibrating your way to the Elysium world, the letter just violently pivots back to the physical dirt of planet Earth.
Yeah, it snaps right back.
He tells these students that calamities are imminent and humanity needs an earthly solution right now. We have to look at the timeline here. This letter was published in March 2010.
And the cultural context of 2010 is so essential for understanding the urgency of this document. At that time, the global zeitgeist was heavily saturated with anxiety regarding the year 2012.
Oh yeah, the whole Mayan calendar thing?
Exactly. You had the expiration of the Mayan calendar, escalating environmental crises, and just this pervasive, low-level panic about end-of-the-world scenarios. The letter taps directly into that ambient dread, explicitly stating that their goal is to lead the globe into a new era after the 2012 shift.
And he grounds this cosmic, multidimensional theory in highly contemporary politics to prove its immediate relevance. He references specific Chinese leaders from that time, Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao, describing them as compassionate figures who embody the soul of China. And just a quick note for you listening, we want to make it absolutely clear that we're completely impartial here. We aren't taking any political sides, left or right, or endorsing this view. We're simply reporting on the original source text to show how the author was synthesizing geopolitics with his spiritual ideas.
Yeah, it's a fascinating rhetorical move on his part. He's telling the reader, this isn't a fairy tale happening 1,000 years from now. The leaders you see on the news tonight are the anchors for the transition I'm talking about.
He leverages those familiar figures to introduce an utterly unfamiliar, radical utopian blueprint. He calls it the Lifechanyuan era.
And this is where the societal restructuring really kicks in.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The characteristics of this new era are incredibly extreme. He promises stable weather, total global prosperity, and the complete disappearance of nations, political parties, and religions. Everything converges under a single, unified, global government.
Which is a massive claim on its own.
But the mandate that truly stops you in your tracks, the one that shatters the standard utopian mold, is the absolute dissolution of the traditional family structure.
Yeah. Most utopian visions, whether they're political or religious, usually aim to strengthen the family unit, perhaps by providing better financial support or stronger community values. Xuefeng's vision demands its complete eradication.
Wait, he wants to dissolve the family entirely. I mean, that doesn't sound like spiritual liberation to me. That sounds like classic textbook cult isolation tactics. If you sever a person's ties to their parents, their spouse, and their children, you remove their entire support system.
You're completely untethered.
Yeah, they become entirely dependent on the collective leadership. Does he even address that immense psychological manipulation?
He approaches it from a completely different philosophical baseline regarding the nature of suffering. In modern Western-influenced thought, freedom is synonymous with individual choice, right? The freedom to build your own family, accumulate your own wealth, defend your own private sanctuary.
Right, the American dream kind of model.
Exactly. But Xuefeng's philosophy aligns with radical ascetic traditions where freedom is defined not as the accumulation of choices, but as the total absence of burden. He argues that the things we cherish most, our spouses, our children, our property, are the very anchors drowning us in the material world.
Oh.
By severing them, he claims he's not isolating the individual, but liberating them from the crushing anxieties of possession, jealousy, and loss.
He's basically saying you can't fear losing your home if you don't own one, and you can't experience the heartbreak of a failing marriage if marriage doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And the wild part is, this wasn't just a theoretical thought experiment for a sociology class. The letter reveals that at the time of writing, they had already been operating a real-world physical prototype of this society for a year, a commune known as the second home.
Right. The second home is where the 36 dimensions crash into a daily chore chart. The letter outlines a strictly organized lifestyle meant to serve as a beacon for humanity post-2012. The economic model is absolute communal sharing. You contribute according to your abilities and receive according to your needs.
So they handle everything.
Everything. The collective provides your food, clothing, housing, healthcare, and end-of-life care. The motto is that you own nothing, yet have access to everything.
So if you were living in the second home, your Tuesday wouldn't involve checking your mortgage rates or, stressing about a 401k. It would involve a mandatory 6 hours of labor. The letter explicitly states there is zero tolerance for laziness or selfishness.
Right, everyone has to pitch in.
And the community takes over the upbringing and education of all children from birth and assumes full responsibility for the care of all elders. The nuclear family is entirely outsourced.
And the dismantling of traditional bonds extends to romantic relationships as well. Marriage is abolished. Entirely. The text states that romantic and sexual relationships are completely free, but with a highly specific, heavily enforced caveat. No one is allowed to use the concept of love to control, harm, or deprive another person of their freedom.
So it's like a heavily regulated form of free love, governed by a very strict ethical framework.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you're looking at a society that demands its members adhere to what they call the 800 values for new era human being. They also systematically reject all superstitious and feudal activities, replacing them with structured weekly community entertainment events just to maintain group cohesion.
Let's look at this from the perspective of the target audience for a second, those university students. The letter repeatedly promises that the ultimate purpose of life is to achieve joy, happiness, freedom, and bliss.
Right.
But to unlock this freedom, you have to surrender your personal identity, give up your children to a community center, abandon the concept of a spouse, forfeit all private property, and strictly memorize and follow an 800-rule value system. It feels like a massive paradox. How does extreme, forced attachment lead to actual freedom?
It's a great question, and this brings us to a profound psychological insight about modern society, particularly for highly educated, burnt-out young adults. We live in an era defined by the paradox of choice.
Oh, absolutely.
A 22-year-old graduating from university is faced with this terrifying, infinite landscape of decisions. What career to pursue, where to live, who to marry, how to invest, how to survive economic downturns. This endless autonomy generates crippling decision fatigue and chronic anxiety. Xuefeng's 800-rule system is seductive exactly because of its strictness.
I see. They're trading their anxiety for their autonomy.
Exactly. When you enter a system where you own nothing but everything from your meals to your elder care is guaranteed, and where an 800-point framework dictates your values, the crushing burden of navigating modern capitalism just vanishes.
It's taken completely off your shoulders.
Right. The prospect of having every major life decision made for you by a cosmic blueprint can feel less like imprisonment and more like a massive collective exhale.
And he even states they were attempting to build 256 branches of these second home communities worldwide to catch the fallout of the 2012 shift.
Oh.
It is just a staggering level of ambition. So what does this all mean? We started with a letter addressing fresh-faced college grads about their lack of spiritual curriculum.
You did.
We zoomed out to map a holographic universe with 36 dimensions, and then zoomed all the way back in to a radically structured global commune that demands the end of the traditional family.
It is a remarkable journey through a highly syncretic belief system. But if we strip away the 36 8-diagram arrays and the specific apocalyptic timeline of 2012, we find a core diagnosis that connects directly back to you, the listener. Well, Xuefeng's central challenge, the idea that our relentless societal focus on acquiring material wealth and technical skills leaves us feeling profoundly rootless, is an incredibly sharp critique of the modern rat race. Even if you completely reject the mechanics of the second home or the existence of the Elysium world, his diagnosis hits a nerve.
It really does.
It forces you to evaluate the curriculum of your own daily life. Like, what kind of wealth are you actually sacrificing your time, your energy, and your peace of mind to pursue?
It makes you look at that diploma on your wall or, that paycheck hitting your bank account and wonder if you've entirely neglected the other two-thirds of the equation.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to where we started, the commencement speech. We like our life advice clean, predictable, and focus on building our own secure, heavily fortified little lives. But the Lifechanyuan vision argues that to achieve absolute global harmony, to actually save humanity from its own destructive instincts, we can't just tweak the system. We have to dissolve the most intimate boundaries we possess.
Right. A total reset.
Our nations, our religions, our private bank accounts, the very concept of the human family itself. It raises a haunting question for you to explore on your own. Is human conflict actually rooted in the very things we hold most dear? And if world peace and cosmic harmony required giving up everything and everyone you currently call mine, would you be willing to pay that price?